Welcome, thrill seekers, to a world of spine-chilling tales and hair-raising adventures. Gather around for a frightful journey into the unknown as we delve deep into the realm of scary stories. Buckle up, hold on tight, and get ready to experience a rush of terror like never before. Once upon a time, there was a small town in the middle of nowhere. The town was built on the ruins of an old castle that had long since crumbled away. Despite the ominous history of the town, the residents were content with their peaceful lives. But one day, strange things began to happen in the town. People reported hearing strange noises at night, and some claimed to have seen ghostly apparitions wandering through the streets. The town was thrown into a state of panic, and the local authorities began to investigate. The investigation led them to an old graveyard on the outskirts of town. The graveyard was the final resting place of the castle's former inhabitants, and it had been left abandoned for years. But as the investigators entered the graveyard, they found that it was far from deserted. The graves had been dug up, and the coffins had been pried open. The investigators were horrified to find that the bodies inside had been mutilated and torn apart, as if something had been feasting on them. The town was in a state of terror, and people began to lock themselves in their homes at night. But the horrors were far from over. One night, a young couple decided to take a walk through the town. They held hands and laughed as they strolled through the empty streets, oblivious to the danger that lurked around them. As they approached the old castle ruins, they heard a faint whispering sound. They stopped, looking around to see if anyone was there. But there was no one. The whispering grew louder, and they realized that it was coming from the castle ruins. Curiosity got the best of them, and they made their way into the castle, despite the warnings of the townspeople. As they entered the castle, they found that the walls were covered in strange symbols and writing. The air grew colder, and the whispering grew louder. The couple was unnerved, but they pressed on, drawn deeper into the castle by some unseen force. They soon found themselves in a large room, with a stone altar in the center. The altar was covered in strange symbols, and on top of it lay a human skull. The couple was horrified, but they couldn't tear their eyes away from the altar. And then, the skull began to move. It rolled off the altar and onto the ground, and then it began to grow. Bones sprouted from the skull, forming a skeletal body. The couple tried to run, but the door had closed behind them, trapping them inside. The skeletal creature advanced on them, its bones creaking as it moved. The couple screamed as the creature grabbed them, pulling them closer to its skeletal face. And then, it opened its mouth, revealing razor-sharp teeth. The couple was never seen again. The town was thrown into a state of chaos. People barricaded themselves in their homes, and the authorities were helpless to stop the terror that had descended upon them. But one brave man decided to take matters into his own hands. He was a historian, and he had spent years studying the history of the castle and the town. He believed that the key to stopping the horrors lay within the castle ruins. He made his way into the castle, armed with nothing but a flashlight and his wits. He navigated through the twisting corridors, ignoring the whispers that echoed through the halls. Finally, he found himself in the same room where the young couple had met their fate. The altar was still there, and the skeletal creature lay on the ground, motionless. The historian approached the altar, studying the symbols and writing. And then, he realized what he had to do. He began to chant, reciting the ancient words that he had spent years deciphering. The air grew colder, and the whispers grew louder. The skeletal creature began to stir, its bones creaking as it rose from the ground. But the historian didn't flinch. He continued his chanting, his voice growing louder and more powerful with each passing moment. The symbols on the altar began to glow, and the skeletal creature let out a deafening roar. But still, the historian didn't falter. He pushed on, pouring all of his energy into the chant. And then, suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light. When the light faded, the historian found himself standing alone in the room. The skeletal creature was gone, and the symbols on the altar had vanished. The historian emerged from the castle, a triumphant smile on his face. He had saved the town from the horrors that had plagued it for so long. But as he made his way back to his home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The whispers were still there, echoing in the back of his mind. And then, he heard a soft creaking sound behind him. He turned, expecting to see nothing but darkness. But instead, he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. And then, slowly, the eyes began to move closer. The historian ran, his feet pounding on the pavement. He could hear the creature behind him, its bones creaking and rattling with each step. He made it to his house and slammed the door shut behind him, but he knew it wouldn't hold the creature for long. He barricaded himself inside, hoping that he had bought enough time to come up with a plan. But the whispers were growing louder now, and he could feel the creature's presence in the room with him. He could hear the bones creaking and rattling, getting closer and closer. And then, suddenly, there was silence. The historian cautiously made his way to the door, expecting to see the creature waiting for him. But when he opened the door, he found nothing but darkness. He stepped outside, his heart still pounding in his chest. And then, he saw them. The glowing eyes, staring back at him from the shadows. The historian realized, too late, that the creature had been toying with him all along. It had let him think that he had won, only to strike when he was at his most vulnerable. The historian disappeared that night, just like so many others before him. The town was never the same after that, and people began to avoid it altogether. The castle ruins still stand, a testament to the horrors that had taken place there. And on quiet nights, when the wind is just right, you can still hear the whispers echoing through the empty streets. As the night draws to a close, we bid farewell to the terrors that haunted us and the spine-tingling tales that kept us on the edge of our seats. Remember, the darkness may linger, but the dawn always brings a new light. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop exploring the mysteries of the unknown.